What's up? You are now listening to Americanized, a storytelling podcast where you'll hear from eclectic first and second generation Americans share their stories and real life experiences as children of immigrants.
Welcome back to Americanized. In part one of this two-part series, you get to hear from Marcus Higgs, a communication coach for parents of preteens. In this episode, your host, Roslyn, and Marcus discuss the experiences of their adolescence and Marcus's journey to becoming a communication coach. Stay tuned.
Hey, Roslyn, wonderful to be here. Yes, communication coach for parents of preteens. And how did I get here? Well, when a man loves a woman and they have a special hug. So that woman was from the Philippines. My father is from the Bahamas, and they met in Nebraska, of all places. I was born in California, so I have the island in my blood on both sides. Yeah, and I'm what people in your audience may know. It's called a third culture kid, where your passport doesn't necessarily match your upbringing or that of your parents or the country where you identify. There are many different variations of it, but I'm a multicultural kid as well as yourself, as we were talking in the pre-interview. And I grew up in the Bahamas. I moved here when I was 12. My father's from the Bahamas. I studied communication at Oakwood University in Alabama. And straightway, I went to South Korea to be a missionary teacher. I say my understanding of the divine expanded. No animosity towards the church or anything, but just my understanding of the world and what my spiritual life was. I stopped being a missionary, but continued teaching because I loved that. And I taught in Saudi Arabia, learned about Islam as a world religion, then Spain and Thailand. And I lived there for 7 years. Now I'm back in the Bahamas. I was a teacher, a K-12 teacher, an educator rather, in grade 12, grade 9, and 5th grade. I remember speaking with my chairperson one time. I said, 12th grade feels a lot like therapy. And he said, Marcus, that's why it's called the humanities. We're teaching them how to be human. And that's a lot of what my work is. These are the conversations I would have with parents inside our parent-teacher meetings. They were in an international school, so English was their first language, but they did also come from a multicultural background. And yeah, I decided to come out of the classroom. But Mr. Rogers said, if you want to help the kids, support the parents. And that's what I do. I help them with their communication at this transitional time in their life during their preteens.
That's amazing. And that's absolutely right. If you want to help the kids connect with the parents, because a lot of what you're seeing at the school, I work at a school too. A lot of it starts at home. Thinking of your travels, what has been the most meaningful or unforgettable experience?
That's so broad, so wide. I'll give you one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Ethiopia. Ethiopia was dope. Traveling in the northern part of Ethiopia, Lalibela, there's this place where the Coptic church started, and they have these temples or places of worship carved out into the wall, and that's where the Coptic or the Christian church would hide when they're being attacked by the Muslims, right? From the Arabian Peninsula. And it's a beautiful piece of art. It's a beautiful culture. It's where I felt home a bit. It felt familiar, even though I was coming there for the first time. Usually I have my hair in an afro, and I blended in well. My brother looks Ethiopian, but I guess Bahamian Filipino, the combination looks like that. But that was an impressionable moment. Just getting to know the people, because when I was there, I was just amongst the people. I was couch surfing, but connected, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, no, that sounds really beautiful. It sounds like Ethiopia is a very transformative place. I was going to say magical, but I don't know about that word. I have a friend who did some missionary work there too, and I think she was just really moved by the people and their culture there. So that's
Mhm.
interesting that you say that.
Yeah, yeah. Ethiopia is a dope place, man. There are a lot of Ethiopians actually in the Boston area
Yes, yes, there are a few restaurants too that I have yet to try.
within Jara. They're wonderful people.
Mm.
Yeah.
As a communication coach for parents of preteens, how do you relate to your clients and maybe what they're experiencing? How can you relate that back to when you were a preteen, also identifying as a third culture kid? How are you a model example of a preteen, or were you also like, or did you go through all of the rebellion, back talk, and where do you land?
Hey. Well, all of us listening to this, unless you're 10 and below, we were preteens or we are preteens. Like we
Hmm.
all had our different experiences
Right.
because every individual is unique. And then the dynamic with the other people, it's unique.
Hmm.
So having parents, as you know, who immigrated here, that's one layer. And
Right.
then growing up inside a culture, you're coming with your own culture. That's another layer of let's figure some things out here. Personally, I think I am called to this work because I see myself sometimes as an advocate for preteens and teenagers of what they're experiencing as to say, hey, parents, know your audience. If you want to communicate with them, these are some of the things that they're thinking or what's going on.
Hmm.
This wonderful book called The Breakout Years by Ellen Galansky. I think one thing that colors a lot of our communication is our expectations. And I'll explain. People move towards your expectation.
Hmm.
And we oftentimes expect teens to be angsty.
Hmm.
And so because we're looking for that, that's what we find. It's called the
Exactly.
Pygmalion effect. And the parents oftentimes they look at their teenagers and they're like, oh no, they're going to be risky. They're going to wild out. They're going to be highly sensitive. And they blame it on hormones or whatever. And then just in this whirlwind of frustration, anger, or whatnot, mismanagement of emotions, that's why these years are tumultuous.
Hmm.
They don't have to be like that. That and there's stuff that we need to work out as adults, as caregivers, as people in their lives. I believe with the conscious parenting movement, it says they say kids are given to us so that we might figure out who we are.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's how all stressors in life they're given to us that we might figure out who we are.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And ideally those stressors aren't chronic. Those stressors aren't over manageable. Like those stressors aren't erratic because those create ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. But those
Hmm.
stressors, when you can manage them, when you know that you can predict them, and when you know that they're coming, that leads to growth. So
It's interesting. It's like we will find what we're looking for, and we do expect these things in teens because it's stereotypical, whether we went through it or the media is telling us, yeah, the preteen years are, they're just wild. I have a younger sister who is, I think she's out of the preteen stage. She just turned 15. So I don't know where you would
okay,
categorize, but she also just started high
it's a
school.
window.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were all like feeling that fear of, because they change. I don't know what it is. It's like, oh, you're not the same little girl that you were. And it's hard
There's
to
this.
watch a sibling grow
Mm-hmm.
up like that. Yeah.
You say it's hard. What's hard about it? May I ask?
I guess it's kind of, you're seeing them grow up and maturing, and that's good and everything. And they're
Mm-hmm.
becoming the person that they will be or want to be. But maybe I can speak for myself. Like I'm holding on to the younger years, the kid years, and I don't know, you see your sibling grow up and it's It's just a little mind-boggling, I feel. It's just unsettling, I think, and uncomfortable. Not
Unsettling.
hard, just uncomfortable and
Yeah, yeah.
just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Just stay there, just static.
Yeah, exactly.
No, man. Um, they have to grow. That's
Mm,
the beauty of it. Bittersweet. The name of my company is Certain Future, and the only thing that's certain is change.
mm,
So how
that's
will we
true.
meet that change? Yeah, we can be intentional on how we're going to meet that change. Um, but they have to grow.
Exactly. And like she's gonna grow regardless. So the
Hey,
acceptance, yeah, she's there. She'll be
that's
fine.
awesome.
How
Hmm.
how did you navigate your identity in your preteens and that question of who am I? What was your experience like with that?
So two things come to mind. One, whenever I talk to people about identity, I think we mentioned this. I'm not sure. It either makes or breaks you for people who
Mm,
come from a multiplicity of backgrounds because oftentimes you can feel as if you're not enough in this particular or you're not enough in that and you just feel mid in a lot of different cultures or groups of people. You don't fit into any particular box, or you really lean into who you are. And it's like Dolly Parton said, figure out who you are and do that on purpose. But it really made me. And when I say it made me, I think that's where my confidence comes from. Um, because you're constantly filling spaces where, oh no, I am different. And if I can be comfortable in my difference, but because I'm secure in knowing I'm here for the collective, I'm here to support. Like I'm very settled here because I know who I am. I am many different things, but I am me, and I am me.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I experienced that at a young age. I think one other thing that greatly helped me was my writing. Writing is organized thinking, and I wrote poetry, and I wrote this poem called "I Am." And just the beginning of it goes, I am a messenger, sanctified to speak with a divine voice and know it was not of my own choice, rather. God's will be done because I am part of a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, holy nation, special person used to proclaim the praise of him who called me out of darkness into the marvelous light. You see, I am the mic and the Lord is my controller. And it goes on and on and on and on.
Mm.
So I established at a young age my identity. And I think that's what helped keep me a long time.
That's really amazing to be like that confident and secure in yourself at a young age. Sounds like part of that has to do with your own like spiritual beliefs and identity in Christ. Is that accurate?
What's when to answer the question, yes, and that's actually the work of Lisa Miller of what she does.
Mm,
I grew up in a community, so I grew up Seventh Day Adventist. That's how I grew up,
okay.
and the college campus, the HBCU that I grew up in, was Oakwood University or Oakwood College. My father was a teacher there. My mother, she was Seventh Day Adventist, and then the community in the Bahamas. When I came here, I had aunties and uncles, and then also just the community here. That said, it was never overbearing. So there's spirituality and there's religion.
Hmm.
And spirituality, it's a birthright for all people. C.S. Lewis said, we are spiritual beings having human experience as opposed to human beings having a spiritual experience.
Right.
Now, religion is the environment, the outside rituals and the beliefs of organizing people,
Hmm.
right? There's some people who say they're spiritual. There's some people who say they're spiritual and religious. And then there's some people who say they're religious. But what it does is it creates a connection with other people, and other people matter. This is where our well-being comes from when we understand we're part of something greater. That's what I understood at a young age. It wasn't so much the religion. The religion was a framework, a scaffold to build upon. Later on in life, that's why I said it expanded. It was just like, if this religion was taken away from me, what do I have? I have a connection with the divine.
Mm, okay.
That
Yeah.
is truly mine. That I would tap into. I have personal conversations. Yeah. And like I said, people live into your expectations. So that's how I meet people.
Yeah, I can tell there's something about you, like when you're just seem very therapeutic and like your calm energy and yes, I feel that.
Hey,
And then I feel like that on top of your lived experiences just does so much power for you to connect with people so easily, especially parents of preteens going through God knows what. God knows what.
how
That's
was
me expecting preteens.
I was gonna say how was your preteen experience with your
Right.
parents?
It was, let me think back. I would say like I didn't rebel against my parents or anything. I was pretty obedient. I feel like I didn't question too much. I just kind of
Okay.
followed expectations and rules, and I went to school, came home, did my homework and all of that. And then I just as a person, I wasn't the most social, so it wasn't like I had a ton of plans to like hang out with my friends and stuff outside of school. But when I did,
Mhm.
because my parents were not 100% open to meeting other parents, to create a connection, to like be comfortable with me hanging out with my friends, it was like shut down. If I was like, oh,
Yeah,
my friends invited me to the movies, can I go? If it's a no, it's a no, and then I'm sad, but can't do anything
yeah,
about
yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
not gonna sneak out and go to the movies with my friends. So I guess it was pretty boring.
I wouldn't say boring. I would say, um, is there a part of you that, in reflection, this was a part that made you really feel alive, and you didn't necessarily share it with your parents?
I did do a lot of like journaling
Mm.
and let's see. The thing that made me feel most alive, I guess, was learning how to swim and just loving
Mm.
to swim. Because out of
Mhm.
all my siblings, I'm the only one who can swim. That phase, yeah, I don't, they're scared of the water and they're scared of dying and drowning. So, but it's
Yeah.
fun. I really enjoy the water and being in the water and just feeling free in the water. Over the summer, my husband and I traveled to Italy and I got to
Mhm.
like jump off of rocks and swim in the open water and it was like nothing I've ever done before and really like adventurous for me because that would have it was scary and I was scared to do it, but I did it and just being in that water was it just felt really, really good and it was peaceful and I feel like freeing is the word that comes to mind. So
Yeah,
swimming,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you an introspective person? Or
I am.
yeah, you love to journal, as you mentioned, music and so on, singing, but then also swimming. All of those are individual things where you can actually be with yourself.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's awesome.
What about you? You said you write or you wrote
Mhm.
poetry, and was there anything else?
There's my book actually,
Oh, you have a
Inspire
whole
Life
book.
Through Words of Well-Being. A whole book. Yes. I have a
Yeah.
few books coming.
Nice. Wow.
Um, I I do love people.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is just wondering and seeing how they tick, why they do what they do, what they believe, why they believe what they believe. Well, now I'm thinking about it, yeah. But writing poetry is from a young age and words and communication
Mm.
I do love. I do love. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's something you've always had, it sounds like. So that's wonderful that you're able to tap into that and create your job out of that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just more about your upbringing and your dynamic with your parents or siblings, growing up being multicultural or third culture kid, what that means to you. I'm throwing a lot at you right now,
Mm.
but sorry, what your experience was like and
You're
what
all
that
good.
means to you.
So I was the youngest of four boys and spent time growing up a lot with my mother. My father was he went ahead of the family to establish his profession and so on. And then we came on. And then we were there in California. They divorced when I was 12 and I went to the Bahamas with my father. But I visited my mom regularly. I had a relationship with her, a good relationship actually. And you know, growing up, I had a good childhood growing up. And the only reason I'm apprehensive is because I see where there was room for improvement. And I see this after doing the work that I'm with, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that explains a lot. Um, no anger, like no shaming, no blaming, no complaining. I'm taking owner in what I'm responsible for fixing now. But then I saw how, yeah, spaces where it could have been better. And that said, I know the people in my life, they were doing the best they could. And they were working with the tools and skills that they had.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I understand it more having grown up, having experienced more people, having deeper conversations that as a kid, it's just like, yeah, you didn't have those conversations, but you're like, I don't know what's wrong, but I know it ain't right. And this ain't right.
Exactly, right? We don't have the language, but we can feel, we can sense that something's a little
Yeah.
off here. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up. I can make a connection to working at a school and like the curriculum or just pieces of the curriculum that students are learning and the social emotional learning that's going on a lot.
SEL.
Yeah,
Mhm.
SEL, all the SEL stuff that I feel like I'm benefiting from as an adult, just overhearing what they're teaching the kids or what they're learning about. And it just seems like very mature only because I was not taught that, and, or at least I didn't know it. It wasn't explicitly taught in school, I guess. Like identifying feelings and managing your feelings, coping with your emotions.
Yeah. We're equipping them at a younger age.
Exactly. Okay. Well, the final question that I have, all my guests answer
Mm.
is if there's one thing, one message that you would like to share with everyone who is listening, what is your message?
Hey, there's no greater privilege than to be who you are.
I love that.
So you got to figure out who you are and do that on purpose.
Yeah, do it on purpose. I like that. Just lean in and don't be afraid of who you are because the world needs those differences.
Yay. There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Marcus. Can you share where people can find you out in the world? And you're in the Bahamas, but online, where can people find you?
MarcusHiggs.com. That's where it is. And I will have my workshop up there.
Awesome. I will link your website in the show notes so everyone will have access to that. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to catch you in the next episode. All original music produced by Stubborn Soul. You can find him on all music listening platforms at STBRNSAL.